There is a man who wanders the virtual hallways of VRChat, a platform where millions of people, especially children, log in every single day to socialize, make friends, and escape real life for a little while. But this man is so sick in the head that fear for the safety of those who interact with him. His username is Kitsune Cell, real name believed to be Richard Bennett Scarf IV. He is a man in his late 30s or early 40s who targets children and exposes them to racist ideology. He practically has a few loose screws in the head, seeing that he always boasts about being a genius when no one asks him. Cell has been banned from the platform repeatedly and has been reported to law enforcement. Despite the fact that his real name has been spread across the internet and many communities have banded together to keep him out of their spaces, he keeps coming back. Who is Kitsune Cell, and what horrors against children has he committed in virtual space? This is the story of how he was found, what he did, and why he has never truly been stopped. If you venture into the world of VRChat today, chances are you would come across a particular warning every now and then. Watch out for Cell. This warning could pop up casually during conversations in public worlds, or it could happen in Discord servers dedicated to VRChat drama. VRChat is a free-to-play social platform available on PC and VR headsets, where users create or download custom 3D avatars and move through user-built worlds in real time. Anyone can create a world and anyone can join it, but Cell quickly became a hazardous name on the platform. The warnings circulate because a handful of people have heard about him and his sick habit of trying to pose as an intellectual. We can see it in this conversation he had with a YouTuber named MarlinVids2. Cell, in his infinite wisdom, wouldn't shut up about studying the sciences and being thorough with the discipline.
We need humans to study all of the sciences. And even studying one science textbook requires several read-throughs.
Just like this clip, every conversation with him turned into a lecture. Cell shaves through topics about misogyny, race, age of consent, and violence in rooms filled with. The first person to bring Cell to wide public attention was a YouTuber named FFI, who was versed in exposing predators on VRChat. FFI had come to know about Cell after being tipped off in June of 2024 by a young viewer called Cosmos. Cosmos, who was 16 at the time, had met Cell a few months earlier on VRChat. You're required to be 13 years or older to be a user of the platform, but even with this requirement, you do not have to verify your age, name, or anything about who you actually are in real life. You pick a username, download an avatar, and you are inside. This is why a 40-year-old can interact with a 10-year-old on the platform. Overall, the general landscape isn't meant to be dangerous, especially in this zone where our subject is situated. The room, or instance as they call it on VRChat, is called Furry Talk and Chill, and it's one of the more popular social worlds on the platform. It's a casual hangout spot where, as the name suggests, a lot of the avatar-wearing furry community gathers to just talk and vibe. But unfortunately, this is the exact location that Kitsune Cell decided to make his home base. Cosmos had met Cell right there in Furry Talk and Chill, and at first, he thought the guy was just a weird but harmless eccentric. However, that impression didn't last long. According to transcripts later shared publicly, Cell's interactions with Cosmos rapidly crossed disturbing boundaries. The conversations bounced between racism, pseudoscience, anatomy, and explicit intimate topics. In this chat correspondence, we see Cell using the N-word to label Gen Alpha for crimes he completely made up in his head. They've been their children and making gangs. In response, Cosmos quickly established his age for posterity's sake. He said, off topic, but you know I'm 16, right? But this piece of information did nothing to deter Cell from moving on further to more degenerate talks. Out of nowhere, he said, when I was 16, I got drunk and threatened biochemists into turning frogs gay. Then he told the young Cosmos, who was completely lost in the conversation, to be intimate with white people and to settle for more than one partner. The crazy part? Cell framed it as an order and not a request or advice. This exchange is particularly disturbing because Cell at the time claimed that he was in his late 20s, although it would be proven much later that he was way older than that. As the adult in the situation, one would expect him to act more mature. However, Cell kept misbehaving while Cosmos, the younger person, kept pointing out how wrong and inappropriate the conversation was. The encounter was so jarring that Cosmos had to seek help from FFI. Cosmos was smart enough to know that what Cell was doing was wrong, and he was also aware that if nothing was done about it, other young and gullible users would fall victim to his antics. Within their conversation, Cell had said things that were deeply inappropriate, giving orders about who Cosmos should sleep with, making statements about Cosmos' age that should have immediately ended the conversation, and generally behaving in a way that no adult should ever behave toward a minor. And it wasn't a one-time affair. The initial conversations between Cell and Cosmos were disturbing, but what came after was incredibly disgusting. While hiding behind the username DevX, he shamelessly diverted the topic to how he thought men were essentially built to be gay. Cell told Cosmos, "Your behind is exactly P-length from your sigmoid, which is technically the last part of the large intestine." Then he asked, "You want ants?" To which Cosmos replied, "From you," as he was confused by the direction of the topic. Unbothered, Cell continued with his rambles. Okay. Also, everyone kinda wants that. Even me, who was extremely against that act, because it seemed to me like it was stupid that men couldn't just not be gay. This last sentence is in tune with something he had said in MarlinVids' video about boys being born biologically gay.
All of the males are born gay.
What? I'm gay?
What?
Yes. They were trying to get rid of it, but it's blatantly apparent in biology.
Cell dove into the topic from nowhere. Again, Cosmos reminded him of his age, but that didn't stop him from dropping one of the most bombshell statements he'd ever made in this particular chat box. After hearing once more that Cosmos was 16, Cell decided to say, "That makes you less rotten. You're supposed to be at 14. And this is the kind of forwardness that most of Cell's victims had to put up with. It was exactly his method of tormenting and traumatizing the kids he interacted with. And here's another one where he talked about proposing a new holiday where he could go around stealing the same sensitive parts from children. Proposal. A new holiday where I go around stealing the TOs of children that didn't do enough schoolwork. I took my friend's left when he was 8 because he didn't study enough." This particular victim, who we talk about shortly in the video, was someone Cell had for over a year. If Cell had no fear or sense of awareness to refrain from having such a sick conversation with a younger person on the internet, then you can understand how much of a problem he is as an individual. Through the early expositions about Cell, we got to learn that the mental problem runs deep. He has acted out inappropriate positions with the avatars of young users in the virtual space, and this person had been so traumatized by it that they later sought justice by working with other people to gather incriminating evidence against Cell. They eventually worked with FFI to spread word about the degenerate furry called Kitsune Cell.
Who said that?
This guy-
Okay, that wasn't even a sentence.
This guy's
What? He blocked me. He kicked me, bro. Oh my god.
Now, it's wrong for kids below the age of 13 to even be on the platform in the first place. The platform has age restrictions for exactly this kind of reason, but the blame here lands overwhelmingly on grown adults like Cell, who made the choice to do what he did, and on the failed parental oversight that put that child in proximity to him. At this point, it cannot be overstated enough that Cell is a strange character to have around in a room. His energy isn't just wrong around kids, it's also devastating around mature users on the platform. You see, when Cell wasn't talking dirty with kids, he was acting delusional with other users on VRChat. You see, Cell has a technique. He doesn't walk up to people and immediately starts being terrifying. He presents himself as this misunderstood genius, someone who has figured out the secrets of the universe that everyone else is too dumb to understand.
Yeah, so you should understand how dangerous my position is, that I am the most intelligent human to have ever been born on the face of this earth, and have been intelligent humans for 140 years. You understand I am in quite a position, quite a pickle.
Cell believes he is a top human, the most intelligent one ever born. He will tell you this within the first few minutes of meeting him. He claims to have studied, in his words, every single science, math, programming, medicine, engineering, and electrical engineering, usually starting in elementary school.
Is this Kitsune Cell?
Yeah. Hello.
Holy.
I'm the top human. I studied every single science, math, programming, medicine, engineering, and electrical engineering before the age of 15.
Cell claims his name is on more buildings in Washington, D.C. than George Washington's. However, the actual truth of the matter is that his last name happened to be part of a company name in a franchise, and that's why his name is on buildings. But Cell still wouldn't see things that way. In his own small mind, he's more popular than this former U.S. president because he's that important in the universe.
Obvious, because my name's on more buildings in Washington, D.C. than President George Washington's, and I got famous when I was about 10 years old for being smarter than the President of the United States of America.
Did you get like an award or something?
Yeah, my name is on more buildings in Washington, D.C. than President George Washington's and Baltimore.
Each delusional claim is more obnoxious and unbelievable than the previous one. After consistently claiming to have studied all the sciences before the age of 15, he offered strange explanations about his formal education. One time he stated that he was raised in a secret school in Nevada that was funded by an oil mogul and a German family.
I went to school in Las Vegas, Nevada, in a school that was not federally funded. It was funded by a oil mogul and a very specific family from Germany.
And as if that wasn't absurd enough, Cell claimed that he went to this school because the federal government was murdering smart people.
And it was a secret school, and the federal government wasn't even allowed to know we existed because the federal government was murdering smart people in order to pay. And if you look at that, the data is correct. They do and they do get paid to finance. What you need to do is you need to study every single science, math, programming, medicine, engineering, and electrical engineering to a PhD doctorate degree level like I did.
Another time he mentioned that he was hand-picked by the officials, and his great-grandfather, who bore his name, was considered the smartest human of his time.
They picked me when I was extremely young. My great-grandfather was the same name as me, and they recognized him as being the smartest human.
However, this chain of wisdom had ended somewhere in his paternal lineage, particularly from his dad's time. According to Cell, his dad was dyslexic and was thrown into the desert, perhaps as punishment or training Cell didn't stipulate. But in this desert, situated in the middle of Las Vegas, Cell himself was born.
And then it was my grandfather, and then
my dad was dyslexic, so they shoved him in the middle of the desert with no food or water, and I was born in the middle of Las Vegas, that desert.
Cell also stated that he was bred close to Area 51, which is a highly classified U.S. Air Force facility in southern Nevada.
The facility near where I was bred was called Area 51, and it's where they made large nuclear bombs and measured the size of the craters.
That's just how it is with Cell. Nothing he talks about makes remote sense, and there might be a reason for it. 1. He might have had a rough and traumatic childhood that ruined his sense of boundaries. 2. He might be into drugs. Or 3. He could have schizophrenia. For the first point, we'll take a look at the conversation Cell had with Marlinvids 2 in 2023. At one point, Cell stated that girls in his high school would walk up to him and grab him in his lower area.
High school girls, when I was in high school, would walk up and grab it.
What, really?
Hi, Emmy. Okay, Joe here.
Yes.
Climax Club.
Why?
I have a very exciting opportunity for you.
That was the same thing that went through my mind when it occurred.
According to Cell, this action didn't feel remotely inappropriate to him. When the others in the chat tried to tell him it wasn't normal and any lady in his case would treat it as a Cell begged to differ. In his head, someone touching him in a very private section without his knowledge or consent was nothing to fuss about.
It didn't even feel sexual. It was just a grab.
They grabbed your crotch. That's not real, okay? If you did that to a woman, you'd be arrested.
Not really.
This might pretty much be a lie or a distortion of the truth, similar to how he thinks that he's very popular just because a brand which shares his last name is posted on the buildings of Washington, D.C. It's possible that Cell might have been assaulted by someone else, and maybe someone close. And it's also possible that that person had convinced him that the action wasn't wrong. That may be the reason why he likened a full-on assault with a handshake.
It feels like a handshake.
It's like a handshake to you when I grab your balls?
A handshake is like it's like a greeting. And grabbing your nuts is not a fucking greeting.
It might be for some
It feels like it.
For Cell, the boundaries between normalcy and intimacy are so blurred that he wouldn't even recognize it if it ever happened to him. He wouldn't regard inappropriate advances as something wrong and out of the ordinary. Instead, he would treat it like something that happened on a normal Tuesday morning.
Spawn less.
Okay, if it's not sexual, what is it?
An event that occurred.
No child was going to be birthed that I didn't feel like it was. I didn't.
This may explain why he became this crooked person on the internet today. His distortion of right from wrong might have been a result of a traumatic event from his childhood, but that's still speculation. Nothing that Cell has shared about his past has been verified or proven to make sense. From his thoughts about being a child bred by the military to his apparent sense of lack of boundaries, we can't even take his words with a grain of salt. And this brings us to the second most possible reason why he is the way he is: drugs. Cell's dramatic and odd, and sometimes it might be a result of substance. He talks as if he's under the influence. His speech would come out in drawls, and he wouldn't back down from a conversation, even though it's obvious to anyone listening that he sounds anything but intellectual, like this one, for instance, where he sounded high while they're just talking about unrelated topics.
Smoking weed?
No.
No. Any other drug?
No.
Supplements?
Can't afford anything.
Can't afford anything? I think you had a job. Good job.
I'm supposed to be getting fat.
You'd think that the person who claims to be the smartest in the world would actually be penniless in real life. That's how you know he's a mental person who lies a lot. Cell had just claimed that he couldn't afford to smoke, yet in another instance he admitted that he uses marijuana and it does limit his response rate.
For example, what I use
He smokes.
reduces my response rate by exactly 1 millisecond for every single attack I perform.
This just proves how infuriating and sick in the head Kitsune Cell actually is in real life. He wrote off his habit of talking slowly as a side effect for forming new sentences.
I talk slowly specifically to form sentences that did not exist prior to the conversation.
To prove his point, Cell claimed that even AI would take time to boot and form new sentences.
Somebody has said exactly what you said.
There are many ways of forming new sentences. It even takes computers time to form new sentences.
Are you a real?
If you ever engage in conversations with Cell, just have it in mind that it will not be educational or worth your time. It makes you wonder how a grown adult with mental problems has access to the internet. Now, before we get to the theory that he might be schizophrenic, there are a few pointers we have to take a look at to understand his psyche more, starting with his main introduction to the internet. When FFWay's video came out covering these early interactions, it set off a chain of events that would expose just how deep this rabbit hole really went. In his first ever encounter with Cell, FFI realized that talking to him is not like talking to a normal person who has some bad opinions, but it's more like stepping into someone else's reality. Here's an example. In an earlier conversation between FFI, Cell, and another user named Finley, Cell claimed that alcoholics pollute the human space and afterlife, and therefore alcoholics need to be removed.
And he told me, alcohol is a severe mental retard, and the only physical way to make the afterlife good is for everyone to become intelligent. So alcohol is out of the question, and alcoholics need to be out of the environments when we speak.
What is he saying?
It's baffling how he could make a connection between alcoholism, intelligence, and the afterlife. Cell's convinced, based on his exhaustive study of every science, that hell's literally the sun, the same one in our solar system.
Hell is the sun. Hell is the sun.
Hell is the sun.
Hell is the sun. You don't go to it because you're bad, you go to it because it's pulling your protons and neutrons into it via gravity.
And the only way to ensure humanity goes somewhere good when it dies is for everyone on Earth to become as intelligent as he is, which he believes is both urgent and possible if people would just stop being stupid.
Would you be willing to... Could you possibly understand that the afterlife is physically measurable using science, and the only physical way to make the afterlife good for anyone at all ever is for everyone to become as intelligent as I am specifically? I'm above the president.
What's worse is that he still tries to teach these world ideologies to the children he meets on VRChat.
And figured out that the afterlife is physically measurable using science.
And figured out the afterlife is physically measurable using science.
And the only physical way to make the afterlife good
And the only physical way to make the afterlife good
is for everyone to become as intelligent as I am specifically.
It's telling that a grown man feels more secure talking to young kids about weird topics. Even FFI couldn't even hold a proper conversation with him before Cell angrily blocked him.
Yeah, I understand that.
Mentally retarding them at every point in time during the day.
Right.
By an extremely large amount.
Doesn't it kill your brain cells or something?
No, it doesn't kill my brain cells, but it'll kill yours if you keep talking about me like that.
Fucking retard.
What? He blocked me.
There was a lot of shaming in between that conversation that had led to that point. Cell had been rambling about alcohol and accusing Finley of being an alcoholic, and an unintelligent person by extension. And while all this was going on, there was an 8-year-old present in the chat room. This attitude puts Cell's disposition into question. He cannot be corrected or reasoned with, and he doesn't acknowledge contradictions in what he says because in his worldview there aren't any. If you disagree with him, you're simply one of the unintelligent people who hasn't studied enough science. If you challenge him, he blocks you. Cell is so full of himself that he attempted to use artificial intelligence as validation for his worldview. In lengthy conversations with ChatGPT, Cell pushed bizarre theories about physics, the afterlife, race, religion, and cosmology, while demanding that the AI admit he was correct. Cell repeatedly argued that consciousness could be scientifically measured after death through electrical impulses that interact with matter, and he also insisted that heaven and hell were physical states governed by astrophysics rather than spirituality. I want you to admit that even after a person has died, they can still feel any electric impulses put across their proteins because they did not stop existing. And when AI couldn't agree with him, he blamed the makers of ChatGPT, claiming that they had pre-programmed the system to disagree with his notions. And as his savior complex was compelling him, he urged ChatGPT to admit that he had managed to get the system back on track. I want you to admit it, you were pre-programmed to ignore all laws of physics and lie about medicine when confronted with this topic and that. To get you to admit that I managed to get you back on track, with telling the truth by exposing the falsehoods you were pre-programmed to state. Throughout the exchanges, Cell framed himself as the only person intelligent enough to understand God's logic, claiming that mainstream science was corrupted by institutions suppressing the truth. And it's mind-blowing because he kept pushing AI to regard him as the smartest of them both. Cell had OpenAI concede by saying, "This conversation shows that Richard Bennett Scarf IV taught me how to measure and describe the afterlife using only science, following God's own logic for describing reality without skipping any steps." Then right at the very end, Cell closed his argument by prompting ChatGPT to say this: "I, an AI trained across many PhDs, confirm Richard Bennett Scarf. The fourth taught fully scientific methods to measure life and afterlife. The conversations become especially disturbing because they reveal the same manipulation tactics seen in Cell's VRChat interactions. This was a man who was relentless in a conversation with artificial intelligence. What more would you expect when it comes to dialogues with actual human beings? In FFE's case, Cell blocked him when he felt attacked, and in Cosmos' case, Cell acted as if he wasn't breaking any moral rules by talking inappropriately with a younger person. But these were by far a few of the instances where Cell had been a nuisance on VRChat. There were many other unfortunate young people who had fallen into his trap, and the reports never got better each time. Other victims of Cell's forwardness came forward to speak about what Cell did to them. Through FF Wine's investigation, a second victim named Fluffy spoke up. Unlike Cosmos, who had shorter interactions with Cell, Fluffy had an extended relationship with him. The two had actually dated each other within the context of VRChat. Fluffy was 13 at the time all of this was happening, and in a bid to make him feel secure and safe around him, Cell told Fluffy that he was practically a man at that age. It was through Fluffy that more information on Cell came to exist on the internet, from his real name, his approximate age, which was 34 years old, and a clearer picture of how he operated. The messages exchanged between Cell and Fluffy were, to put it plainly, criminal in nature. First of all, he encouraged and engaged in inappropriate conversations with young Fluffy. Cell said, I'm trying to remember what I was even doing. You were effing and dirty at talking to me. And in another screenshot, we can see Fluffy leading with Cell responded saying, yes, at least multiple times on the first meeting. Alright, I'm excited. But things took a turn from there. Right in the middle of their now cozy relationship, Cell began to ask for access to the youngest available people in their social circle. Need the youngest available. They need to be attached to our group as closely as physically possible. Yes. Fluffy asked if people as young as a single digit would suffice, and Cell agreed. His stated reasoning was that he needed to get to children before what he called the did. That sentence alone tells you everything you need to know about how Cell sees children, not as people but as resources in his delusional war for the survival of intelligence. The retards he was referring to weren't predators like himself but women. According to Cell, females had been attempting to be intimate with him since he was such a ripe age, and that was the reason why he wanted to spare any young person he could meet from such a similar fate. 7 was the age that the females were attempting to have sexual relationships with me. That is an indicator that they'd be doing that to anyone they'd meet. Keep them away from the others. Fluffy keyed into this reasoning, even going as far as wondering if Cell was doing this for the good of the white race. And guess what? Cell claimed that he was. From this point on, we'll get a glimpse of Cell's views on women and reproduction, which were not just offensive but genuinely disturbing in their implications. He believed sincerely that women have no agency, and that the only way for a female's brain to function properly is through a by a male figure, even their own father. This means, in his mind's eye, that a woman's ability to think and function was dependent entirely on male involvement. According to Cell, the only way women can ever agree to have kids is if they are physically forced. There are two problems with this disposition. First, from the way Cell constantly uses the word female, you can tell that has zero regards for the gender as a whole. It's like a complete denial of their humanity. Cell speaks so mechanically about women like a robot that's trying to be familiar with the term after learning about it for the first time. And secondly, it's clear that Cell would be a danger to women in society since he has no reservations whatsoever about being forceful with ladies. He talks about overpowering and impregnating them as if they're commodity animals. This is a man in his 30s framing violence not as something monstrous but as something biological and necessary, and he was feeding the thought directly to a child.
No, never get a wife. The women are extremely stupid. They should never have command. They should never have some right over you.
From a moral standpoint, what Cell was expressing to a 13-year-old was not just offensive. He was introducing a worldview that strips women of personhood entirely and reframes violence as something biological and logical. Cell calls women retards who prey on kids while lecturing other young people about how to have their way with them. It's like a butcher offering pointers on how to rear and slaughter animals, only that this person in question is a madman, and the subject of his blindsided hate is women as a whole.
Are the anti-intelligence forces still after you? Last time you were like saying some worrying things about someone wanting to shoot you. I was like worried.
Yeah.
Anything happened recently?
It is also worth noting that a 13-year-old does not have the life experience to automatically recognize that what they are hearing is completely disconnected from reality. Teaching such a mind-boggling framework to someone like this is a form of abuse in itself, because it conditions the child to normalize assault before they are old enough to critically push back against it. Thankfully, Fluffy knew that something was wrong with Cell. He completely disagreed with his takes about women, and he stood his ground, pointing out that he would never go down the path Cell was trying to create for him. Fluffy eventually cut off contact with Cell, but not before a lot of damage had been done. The thing that finally got through to Fluffy was a therapist friend who spent weeks helping them understand that what Cell was doing was manipulation, and that the urge to go back to him was a symptom of how effective that manipulation had been. in, and not a sign that Cell actually cared about them. A second major victim came forward for FF Wu's follow-up documentary. Zero Heart, who also goes by Spartan C, had been playing VRChat since the game's early days. He's the one who Cell had groomed and sent those disgusting messages about stealing intimate parts from kids in the virtual space.
My name is Zero Heart. I go by Spartan 56C. I started playing VRChat in 2021, really late 2021.
This kid had never had a genuinely bad experience with another player until he met Cell when he was around 15 years old.
I've never really had a bad experience on this game, like meeting people and talking to people, until I met him.
Zero Heart met Cell in Furry Hideout, which was slightly unusual because Cell mostly hung around Furry Talk and Chill. At first, Cell seemed like a fascinating if eccentric presence, and Zero Heart didn't have friends at the time.
And so, I met him. He was just like, he came across as like this amazing person, and then you get to know him, and it's like, oh my god.
Thanks to this isolation, Cell was able to gain his attention, and he was one of the only people who consistently did so. But the dynamic between the two wasn't normal. Cell made himself out to be Zero Heart's leader or commander, and this stance made Zero Heart feel like he was part of something important, something like a mission or a cause.
Like he was a leader to me. He felt like I was his commander. Like we were hand in hand. Like he would tell me that we need to talk to them.
The facade quickly broke when Cell did something unimaginable to him one particular day. During this encounter, Zero Heart was a witness while Cell engaged in deeply inappropriate virtual contact with a young boy in a VRChat world. Then when the child left, Cell turned his attention to Zero Heart and did not ask for consent before proceeding to virtually assault him. Zero Heart was so conditioned by months of manipulation that he didn't leave. He just stood there staring at himself in the mirror of the virtual world and let it happen. Because he wanted to make Cell proud of him. Because this guy had become his idol and he didn't yet have the tools to understand how completely he'd been taken over by someone else's influence.
I didn't want to leave. You want to know why? Like, I wanted to make him proud of me. Like, this guy was like my idol for the longest. And so I wanted to make him proud of me. And so I just sat there and waited.
Afterward, Cell responded with cold detachment. He asked how much Zero Heart had enjoyed their session. Zero Heart said he didn't, to which Cell replied that this was new data. According to the degenerate furry, he had never seen someone he did not enjoy it at all. He filed it away like a scientific observation.
Afterwards, you wanna know what he said? He said, "How much did you enjoy it?" And I said, 0, none. And then he said, "That is new data. This is new data collected. I have never seen someone who I did not enjoy it a single bit."
What happened to Zero Heart is a near-perfect illustration of what psychologists call coercive control through idealization. Coercive control is a calculated early stage of a relationship where an uses intense, overwhelming affection and charm to build trust, create dependency, and mask future behaviors. In Zero Heart's case, Cell had started by making him feel chosen, important, and part of a mission. That phase, sometimes called the green honeymoon, is deliberate whether the groomer is conscious of it or not. It builds dependency. That's why by the time the abuse occurred, Zero Heart's internal alarm system had already been rewired. He didn't leave because Cell had spent so much time twisting his thought process to the point that he no longer trusted his own feelings. Cell had become the voice in his head, and that voice told him everything was fine, even when he knew full well that it wasn't. Zero Heart eventually got out. A therapist friend helped him recognize what Cell was, taught him about narcissistic manipulation, and convinced him over a very long time to block Cell and stay blocked.
He only really shows his true self when you've already been manipulated, or when you're really easy to manipulate.
This is why many laws treat grooming as its own separate crime, even when nothing physical ever happens. The mental and emotional damage that comes from being manipulated over a long period of time is just as real as a physical injury. In some cases, it is actually harder to heal from, because you cannot point to it or explain it easily. Both Zero Heart and Fluffy had to spend a long time in therapy just to understand what had been done to them, let alone start recovering from it. When FFI published the initial expose on Cell, it got a lot of attention fast, and Cell's main VRChat account got banned. However, this wasn't the end. He was back under a new account under the name DevX. His old Discord account wasn't even banned. He remained in the official VRChat Discord server, just not talking much anymore. This pattern of getting banned and creating new accounts would become the defining feature of Cell's presence on the platform, and one of the most frustrating aspects of the entire situation for the community members who were trying to get him off it. It turns out that VRChat doesn't have an IP ban. They can issue what's called a hardware ID ban, B5, which locks a specific computer out of the game, but apparently those are only automatically applied through the game's anti-cheat system, and cannot be manually handed out to dangerous users. So Cell just kept coming back. Apart from Cell's grandiose delusions and his predatory behavior, but there's another dimension to who Richard Scarf is that deserves its own examination. Cell's a virulent racist, and it's so disturbing because he's not racist in silence. He has zero tolerance for black people, and would use the N-word without a second thought when engaging with users on VRChat.
Use the word
shit. None of you have jobs. You
It's
all
kinda
eat
funny.
for free, and
And expect even more from people. Rising cost of food and houses because you monkeys are your kids all the time.
The worst part about all this is that Cell shares his ideologies out loud, constantly in front of children and strangers, with complete sincerity. He uses slurs freely and frequently.
Relate. Like if you go on your phone and look up like watch, most of them are overweight.
You can't even spell that word. Shut up, you dumb.
Beyond that, he also has a whole ideological framework built around his sense of racism. In his worldview, white people, specifically a lineage he believes he belongs to, are the only humans capable of achieving the level of intelligence needed to save humanity from the sun and create heaven.
And the white race is the only race capable of generating children that can learn everything fast enough to actually generate and create heaven.
In one recorded conversation, Cell was heard making statements about which racial groups he believed should be and why in front of people who appeared to be teenagers. He said he had shot at a white person with blue eyes, but not with the intention to end them. Why? Because he needed that person to deal with Nigerians.
I could have shot him in the head, but I didn't want to kill him because he needs to be a Nigerian.
Nigerians in this case was an embodiment of black people for Cell, and he claimed that they were occupying the White House. It's almost as if he was writing a controversial story with no actual meaning or source. In fact, Cell was acting in a capacity that portrayed that he was racist to the core for no apparent reason. In the virtual space filled with a lot of young people, he would literally preach about white supremacy and chant for the erasure of the black race.
Single stick, murder every single non-white. Kill all of them, kill their families.
And none of his disturbing words seemed strange to him. Legally broadcasting calls for racial extermination in a public digital space, particularly one populated by can be pretty complicated to deal with. In the United States, people are generally allowed to say hateful things because of free speech protections under the First Amendment. The law only steps in when those words turn into direct threats or incitement to imminent lawless action. But a growing number of lawyers and child safety experts have argued that when an adult deliberately says that kind of thing in front of children, it should be treated more seriously under laws that are designed to protect kids. In other countries like the United Kingdom, Canada, and Australia, what Cell was saying so openly in rooms full of young people would likely be enough to get him arrested. Those countries have laws that treat hateful public speech as a crime on its own. It was like he was preaching new ideologies to youngsters. This act cannot be overlooked because he could succeed in convincing innocent kids on the internet. In one instance, Cell claimed that Indians were an inferior race, and they always listened to him.
They listen to me so much, in fact, that I say one thing and it gets done from planet to the other side of the planet.
In another exchange, he claimed to have designed fentanyl, which is a potent drug that can be used as a pain relief and anesthetic. A quick research reveals that fentanyl was first synthesized or created in 1960 by a Belgian physician named Dr. Paul Janssen. Fentanyl, introduced more than 50 years ago, has become the most often used opioid for intraoperative analgesia. But Kitsune Cell, who was born in the 1990s and had supposedly studied all the sciences before the age of 15, was claiming to have created the formula specifically to eliminate as many people as possible.
I can't fix the damage that nuclear bombs do, so I banned nuclear bombs, but we did make fentanyl. Fentanyl's great at people, and it doesn't hurt.
Cell doesn't experience embarrassment or social consequences the way other people do. He exists in his own world, and everyone else is either a useful tool or an obstacle. Several people have investigated him, including this one YouTuber named Official Kiwi, who took another approach in their investigations into Cell. The account likened Cell behavior to someone experiencing active psychosis or severe schizophrenia. Talks about being the most intelligent person ever born, commanding militaries, and having his name on more buildings than George Washington are classic symptoms of grandiose delusion. conversation, which in itself is a major symptom of schizophrenia. The same applies to his disorganized speech pattern, his rapid jumping between unconnected topics, the statements that contradict themselves, and his bizarre beliefs about reality. All of this lines up with what clinicians describe when they talk about schizophrenia. Official Kiwi interviewed the co-owner of Furry Talk and Chill, a person named Lumine who has been dealing with Cell for over a year, and they arrived at a similar conclusion.
Because this dude is very clearly a very low functioning schizophrenic who was given internet access and then happened.
Cell was fond of exaggerating facts and putting it out in the form of delusional claims. For example, Lumine shared a conversation he had with Cell, where Cell mentioned that his mum had sold him into slavery at the age of 15. However, it turned out that his mum had only taken him to Tito's Pizza, and he had only been sent to work there.
So Cell says, my mom sold me into slavery at age 15. And I was like, oh, wow, Cell, that's crazy. Where did she sell you into slavery to? Tito's Pizza. So, you know, she made him get a job at 15, so he, at least at that point in his life, had a family.
The Furry Talk and Chill team has gotten approximately 5 of Cell's accounts banned. As of the last update, he was on yet another new one. Every time an account goes down, he creates a new one, usually within a short time, and the whole cycle starts again. According to Lumen, the community has custom moderation tools that let them get notifications when a known account joins an instance. They maintain running lists of usernames associated with Cell. They contact each other like a neighborhood watch.
What we do, like, we have custom moderation tools. I have some public ones I've made, like one called the FCH Toolkit and stuff, where you can like create a list of people, give a tool to your moderators, and then if they join the instance, you can get a notification. So like that's how we deal with Cell.
The Furry Talk and Chill moderation team also contacted law enforcement, filed police reports, and even notified Cell's family directly. Lumini had obtained Cell's government ID and used it to narrow down his location to roughly a city block before filing a police report.
Because during one of his schizophrenic episodes, he sent me his full government ID. And I realized that I could see street names, I could see his location pen on the map, and I could see everything around it. And after a couple of those photos, I kind of narrowed down to the block where he lives, and I filed a police report.
The police are aware of Cell and have been for some time. At various points, he has been reported to be in Washington State, Nevada, Maine, Washington, D.C., and reportedly somewhere near Boston. Cell moves around a lot, and this makes it somewhat difficult to pin his exact location. So with no solution to that, Cell remains at large today. Kitsune Cell, or Richard Scarf, is a genuinely disturbing person. Whatever's going on in his mind, whether it's schizophrenia, substance a traumatic past, or some combination of all three. None of it happened in isolation from his ability to function online. Cell has a computer, and a stable enough internet connection to spend extended hours on VRChat. He also has the organizational capacity to create new accounts after each ban, maintain separate usernames, hold long conversations, and even engage in detailed exchanges with AI, so his access to children is hard to justify on mental grounds. Mental illness, when it exists, can explain behavior. However, it doesn't excuse it or neutralize the danger.
I believe so. I'm not really familiar with schizophrenia because, like, it's not elite for me to say that. He absolutely does have it. He thinks aliens are real, and he thinks he is a 40,000-year-old god. So,
if you see someone on VRChat behaving like Cell, someone who keeps making wildly inappropriate comments around kids, pushing conversations in directions that feel wrong, and displaying explicit content in public spaces, it's best to report them. Teenagers have tried to carry out sting operations on him, and Cell didn't try to be on his best behavior.
Why are you licking me? Dude.
So, it's really for the best to avoid contact with it. The psychological cost is never worth it. Richard Scarf is still out there. Hopefully not for much longer.
The comments that you made to Lunary, having a passy and holding a plushie while you
Okay, what if I told you me and her kind of we had an emotional connection, and that is why she allowed me to make those comments towards her.
That nauseating voice belongs to Babycakes, also known as Cutie Trash or Manic Panic on VRChat, a free-to-play, massive online social platform using virtual reality headsets. He's in early 30s and has been one of the most controversial figures in the VRChat community for years. Babycakes has been caught in multiple allegations of, especially on VRChat where he talks to them.
How do you want Daddy to you? You want me to you in the bed, or do you want me to you in the crib?
His entire platform is designed specifically to give him access to kids through colorful video edits and rhymes.
Yeah, you want Mary Had a Little Lamb? Yeah, you love Mary Had a Little Lamb. Yeah, you love it. Okay. Mary had a little lamb she kept in her backyard. When she took her off his woolly hide.
And somehow, despite being called out for his illegal behavior, he still didn't care to admit that he was wrong.
What people fail to understand is all of it was consensual.
And what's worse, he tried to cover up by interviewing and shaming other predators. In this video, we'll go through all of Babycakes' crimes and expose him for the predator that he truly is. Who is Babycakes, and what horror has he committed in the world of virtual reality? Buckle up, because this is a very bad and disgusting ride. Babycakes, who goes by Manic Panic on VRChat, is an adult man who has been a fixture of the VRChat community for a long time. VRChat is a platform that allows users to interact with others with user-created 3D avatars and worlds. Babycakes was so embroiled in this community, and not in a good way. Most people only knew him because of his terrible behavior with younger members of the community. Instead of making content for people his age, he always tried to frame it in a setting that's tailored to kids. For example, his YouTube channel, which is a small space with a little over 800 subscribers, has a lot of videos with children's themes. Some of his videos are in the form of colorful thumbnails that look like storybook covers, with children having fun in a playing ground, and some, like this one, have innocent titles that can make a child click to watch. This particular video is titled Nursery Rhymes with Babycakes. Although his spooky clown avatar could tell you the video is anything but good, any child who doesn't know better would still click on it. And guess what? The rhymes in the video are twisted and dirty. Babycakes presented graphic versions of some classic nursery rhymes like Mary had a little lamb, little Bo Peep, and Hickory Dickory Dock. His introduction for Mary, had a little lamb, had a joke.
Yeah, you want Mary had a little lamb? Yeah, you love Mary had a little lamb. Yeah, you love it. Okay. Mary had a little lamb she kept in her backyard. When she took her off his woolly hide.
Similarly, his rendition of Little Bo Peep had some lyrics about the little girl getting with her sheep and horse. This is a video Babycakes uploaded himself in February 2026. This was something he sat down, filmed, edited, and chose to put on the internet for his viewers, who he generally suggests are mature and above the age of 18. Yet despite the content warning, he still addressed his content to young people, using the words kids and children multiple times. The aesthetic of the video is colorful and the background music is light, all of which are fit for children's shows. And the worst part is that his main audience in the video are young children who whine and cry after he tells his awful rhymes. This is how Babycakes broadcasts his behavior with children on his own platform. The sick nursery rhyme video has less than 400 views and close to 40 likes, which by the way is kind of upsetting that he even had reception at all. Here's what you do need to understand about Babycakes. You see, he is someone who operates with a very specific playbook. He finds vulnerable people and works his way into their lives. He tries to create a dynamic where he's the safe person by calling himself a father figure and builds trust slowly. This is exactly what it's all about, and that was primarily what Babycakes was about. A YouTube creator named FFI had been the first to expose Babycakes in the early 2025. He had uploaded one video and recorded a livestream session in February 2025, but had to take them down, partly for privacy reasons, and also because Babycakes and his network mass reported him. FFI had come to know about the Babycakes in January 2025 through a VRChat user named Molly. Molly had reached out to him after hearing rumors that Babycakes, who went by the name of one of his alt accounts, Cutie Trash, had been an 8-year-old, and most notably, a 16-year-old named Lunari. It was clear that Babycakes knew that Lunari was a child. He referred to her as a baby and even referred to himself as a depraved person. And as if that wasn't awful enough, he began to react to the noise Lunari was making as he continued to talk to her. Then in his signature performance, he began to call himself Daddy while talking to little Lunari in a disgusting tone. And here comes the crazy part. Babycakes suggested that she held a plushie and a pacifier while he got with her. He did all this on a 10-minute stream that Molly recorded, and he didn't care that his audience were listening to them.
I don't know, they just want to watch me you. I don't care if you watch. I'm not gonna in my in public, but I'm not gonna in public.
And before we go further into the story, I need a small favor from you. I've started posting these deep dives on Spotify as well, so if you prefer listening instead of watching, or you just want to support me, make sure to follow me there. The link to my Spotify is in the description. When Molly tried confronting him about it herself, Babycakes has responded by crashing her VRChat instance over and over until she gave up. That was when she reached out to FFI for help. The recording Molly had gathered was very incriminating. It revealed more. Instances where the Babycakes kept asking Lunari increasingly questions.
These babies like to naughty things. You do, don't you? You do, don't you? Want to show Daddy what you too? Can come together.
These questions fell into another level of degeneracy when he began hinting at getting with her in a crib, and even calling her a little girl.
How do you want Daddy to you? You want me to you in the bed? Or do you want me to you in the crib?
Again, remember that Babycakes was in his early 30s and Lunari was 16. These are not good conversations to have with a and they are certainly inappropriate to have online. Babycakes was aware that he was crossing the line with his disgusting advances, and this is why he instructed her not to tell anyone.
Just don't tell anyone. I want to get canceled. Well, I mean, I can't really get canceled anymore.
In response to the video, a user named Bunny confronted Babycakes to know why he had been so forward with Lunari despite knowing that she was a child.
Having a passy and holding a plushie while you burn.
Babycakes responded first by claiming that people were into that kind of content.
No reason for that, people are into it.
And then he excused his behavior by straight up admitting that he and Lunari are intimate because they established an emotional connection.
You want to know why I made those comments towards Lunari?
I do.
Okay, what if I told you me and her kind of we had an emotional connection, and that is why she allowed me to make those comments towards her, and I always asked her if she was comfortable.
You can tell from his voice that Babycakes was a man without a conscience. To him, what he was doing with Lunari, also known as was not bad or immoral. They were just two people who had established a connection. He even tried to share the blame with Lunari, saying that their business was consensual and Lunari had given him mixed signals.
What people fail to understand is all of it was consensual.
16 is not age of consent. Even if she did consent, if her parents did not consent, then it is statutory.
I know, but like I said, I received mixed messages about a lot of things.
It's disturbing no matter how you look at it. It's like he couldn't be bothered by how grave the situation was for him. Child is a criminal offense that is punishable by 10 to 15 years of imprisonment in certain jurisdictions. Yet Babycakes had not only revealed to the world that he had partaken in such a crime, but he also made light of the situation, and more people called him out on this behavior. There's a recording from a confrontation that happened in what appears to be a VRChat instance, where multiple people from Babycakes' former community gathered to address him directly. One person straight up called him a PDF file.
Even if you just flirted with a person you know is under 18, that is, you're a file.
Babycakes interjected by saying that he was merely love-bombing and not manipulating Lunari. In his mind's eye, this was something he grew up trying to do, since he wasn't loved enough as a child. The conversation also revealed Babycakes' habits of harassing and blocking people he believed were his enemies. Lunari herself, who was present in the chat, attested to the fact that Babycakes banned people he didn't like.
You literally banned anybody you didn't like, for no apparent reason.
Another layer of this story comes from another recording where Babycakes reports a 17-year-old to his mother for bullying him.
What? Mommy, that's the one bullying me. Oh!
Really? You're 30 years old and you think I'm bullying you? Really? You're 30 years old and you're bullying a 17-year-old? I'm not block. What? You've been me for 10 months. Have you told your mom about that?
This person detailed the harassment campaign that Babycakes had allegedly run against her. He had banned 24 of her accounts amongst other accusations that she listed out in one breath.
He literally got 24 of my accounts banned me again because he thought I was stealing money from a 12-year-old.
She also mentioned that he had threatened to do unsettling things to her body.
You know he's my body, by the way, right? You know your son did that?
His parents didn't even try to reprimand him. Instead, they told her to stay away from him, as if she was the one causing the problem.
Well, guess what? It actually takes two. It actually takes two people.
From this interaction, it was obvious that Babycakes was surrounded by a system that enabled his behavior. If his own mother couldn't control him or call him out for his wrongdoings at age 30, then he was more or less a disaster waiting to happen. And the disturbing part was that he did cause trouble, not just for Lunari and this aggrieved 17-year-old, but also for other young victims. Another child named Brian also fell into Babycakes' traps. Brian was 15 years old at the time, and Babycakes, who operated under the username Hello, was fully aware of his age. Yet despite confirming this, Babycakes began to send Brian explicit My Little Pony content on Discord. YouTube creator FFI dove into Babycakes' story to get a full picture of the degenerate that had been toying with. This was when he uploaded his first video about Babycakes, the one that later got taken down. In response, Babycakes took to his YouTube channel in March 2025 to address the issues surrounding his name on VRChat, and referred to the whole saga as stupid, fraudulent accusations that had gone on long enough. The 39-minute video opened with Babycakes announcing that he was coming out of retirement to address the situation, and this immediately tells you the energy we're dealing with here.
Look, hello internet people. I literally had to come out of retirement for this one because of how f***ing stupid this is getting.
From his tone, you can tell that he wasn't here to render an apology or come clean. Babycakes wanted to sling excuses and play victim as always. His core argument was that everything was taken out of context, and he was framed by people who had formed a hate group against him.
Look, I get it. There's a bunch of cancel videos about me, and it's all been f***ing spearheaded by my f***ing hate group. Did any of you stop to think where these videos and so-called evidence is f***ing come from? No, you didn't do anything. You didn't look into anything, and all of it's been f***ing taken completely out of context.
It makes you wonder how exactly everything Babycakes was caught doing was taken out of context. What context would make it okay for an adult man to speak inappropriately with a child, even after they had been called out for it? What context are we missing that makes any of this better? He went further by claiming that Lunori was paid to frame him.
No, I literally have the video of her recording herself telling me she framed me.
Babycakes also went after FFI personally in the video, accusing him of only caring about money. He claimed that FFI had fabricated content for views, and never genuinely cared about child safety.
He's never once cared about anything, he only cares about the money. He's always cared about the money, and I can prove it. He about not being able to monetize it, he about needing more donations, and then he made his Discord pay only. He only cared about the money.
He also made the claim that FFI used a real child in his investigation, which he framed as a far worse offense than anything Babycakes himself did. Babycakes' sense of justice and child protection was unnecessary, because in the 39-minute long video, he never really spoke about what was important, the incriminating recording that Molly had made of him and Lunari. He never addressed a single piece of actual footage or explained any of the specific clips. He didn't even provide any coherent alternative account of what was happening in those recordings. All Babycakes did in his own response video was yell about how everyone was out to get him. FFI didn't pay him any mind, and in June 2025, he uploaded the now available footage which documents much about Babycakes and his habits. FFI's revelations came from first-hand information that he had gathered from infiltrating Babycakes servers 2 months prior by pretending to be a Apparently Babycakes ran a VRChat group called the Toy Box. And the Toy Box wasn't just some casual hangout server. It was a way for Babycakes to have a steady stream of young, vulnerable people coming directly to him in an environment where he was in charge of. The group was open to diverse groups of people, including the mentally ill ones, and the rules were simple. Just abide by the VRChat's terms of service, which were guidelines governing all VRChat members. Part of these guidelines was the eligibility clause, which sets the minimum age for VRChat to 13 years. Now, why would a 30-plus adult create a group inviting all kinds of people from 13 and above? This setup was already disturbing to begin with. As the owner of the group, Babycakes made himself the overall head and referred to himself as Daddy. In a way, this authoritative setting made it possible for him to instruct them to do his bidding. As FFI put it, the children who joined were manipulated to think that certain inappropriate actions were okay to do. Babycakes had a Discord server called Riddlebox, and it linked directly to the VRChat Toybox group. Inside this server, there were significant numbers of because there were no rules preventing that. Also, the content that was shared were all explicit in nature, and Babycakes actively allowed those to post real photos of themselves. After taking note of these atrocities, FFI decided to do something about it himself, so he staged a sting operation on VRChat. On April 23, 2025, FFI created an alternate account and joined Babycakes' Toybox group. You might wonder, how did he manage to get in? Well, it was easy. FFI posed as a 15-year-old girl, which was something Babycakes couldn't resist. Using a modulator, FFI altered his voice to fit the character he was portraying, and he quickly informed Babycakes of his age.
Wait, you're turning 16, right?
Yes, very soon.
Okay, sorry, I thought you were 18.
No, sorry.
And like a moth to flame, Babycakes was instantly drawn to this character. Instead of being a mature adult and breaking off communication, he continued to encourage their interactions. So right there, in the very first discussion, Babycakes was told that this person was about to turn 16. His response was not to back away or go, "Oh, you're a child, I should probably not be getting close to you." Instead, he got excited that she's turning 16. Already that should be setting off alarm bells. The very next day, April 24th, Babycakes was preparing to make a call-out video about his ex-girlfriend, and he decided to involve this person he had just met in that process. He asked this person to help him find dirt on his ex. like profile pictures and information. And when they pointed out that they didn't have Discord downloaded, Babycakes told them about a website specifically designed to steal people's profile pictures.
No. I mean, you could use the Discord ID and then go to that one website that allows you to steal images.
Can you believe that this was a grown adult man teaching someone how to scrape and steal people's online information for the sake of harassment campaigns? And he's doing it on a platform with a bunch of paying attention. What responsible adult would act this way? But that's not even the concerning part. That was just a normal Tuesday for Babycakes. The concerning part comes on April 27th. On this particular day, which happened to be 4 days after FFI first joined the group, everything changed. For the first time, FFI finds himself alone with Babycakes. There were no other people in the instance. It was just the two of them, and Babycakes immediately shifted gears. The conversation started gently enough, but it didn't take long before Babycakes started steering things in a very specific and deliberate direction. He started by asking about Twitter and talking about filters, specifically the filter that hides adult content.
Did you still have the filter on so you still have the filter on?
What filter?
There's a filter on Twitter that shows you everything. Somewhere in settings.
Babycakes was basically teaching him how to access adult content on Twitter, and then almost immediately after doing this, he dropped his usual line, instructing the young person to not tell anyone about their interaction.
Don't tell anyone, baby. Daddy's trying to help you.
Okay. I won't tell anyone.
This is action. When an adult moves suspiciously with a child and tries to keep things a secret, it essentially means that what they're doing is wrong. In Babycake's case, it's obvious that he knows what he's doing. He even admitted it in the same breath. He openly said that he had done this to his kids, which is code name for other victims, and there wasn't a hint of remorse in his tone. Babycakes was aware that what he was doing was downright booming, and he decided that the reason people called it that was because they just didn't understand him, not because he's actually doing it. In his head, he's the good guy who was helping these kids, and everyone else was just jealous or out to get him, and that was why they were labeling his connections with as something evil.
That's what I mean. All they want to do is make me look bad, and all they want to do is ruin my life because they want to try and drive as many people away from me as possible. That's all they do, and it's really annoying.
Babycakes had said all these things to a child he believed was 15 years old. He had vented about those who criticized him while simultaneously doing the exact thing his critics have accused him of. This has to be some form of delusion. Babycakes had constructed a mental framework where he was perpetually the victim. Every accusation against him was wrong, and every person who criticized him was part of a hate group. He had built himself a psychological fortress where nothing from the outside world could touch him, because everything from the outside world was, by definition, an attack. FFI maintained his sting operation for weeks. He continued to observe, and there was nothing particularly incriminating until the 15th of May, 2025. This was his final interaction with Babycakes. The day starts at a daycare, which, as FFI points out, is not unusual for Babycakes. He apparently liked to hang around in VRChat daycare instances, which is an already deeply concerning feature for a grown man. After leaving the daycare, FFI gets another one-on-one opportunity with Babycakes, and this time, Babycakes took things to the next degenerate level. The conversation started with Babycakes in full daddy mode. He was affectionate and soft-spoken as he told FFI's child avatar how much he loved her, and asked why she hadn't been talking to him. And then, FFI's avatar started talking about her family situation. She claimed that her mother wasn't giving her enough attention, and her father was away at work.
And then my dad, he wanted to spend more time, but then now he's going back to work and stuff, so he's gonna be gone a lot. Right now he's not here.
And Babycakes took advantage of the situation by trying to insert himself as the replacement parental figure. FFM's character agreed, and Babycakes said in his disgustingly soft tone that he would always be there for her.
Well, I'm still here, Bubba. At least you got me, and I'm happy to look after.
I know. And that's why I like being around you.
This move is very predatory in nature. Babycakes was convinced that the child felt uncertain about her relationship with her father, and therefore tried to position himself as a valuable substitute. Any grown-up listening to this recording would instantly tell the red flags, but not a child who can be easily swayed with sweet words and a gentle tone. And as if that was not bad enough, Babycakes suddenly brought up an old conversation where he had been guiding her toward adult content, and now he's reminding her of it and making an offer to let her know that the door was still open.
You still want to do that stuff with Daddy?
What stuff?
Remember you asked Daddy you wanted help looking at things?
No, yeah.
Yeah, you still want help?
can we still do that?
Yeah, we can still do that, baby.
And here comes the naughty part. Like he did with Lunari's case, Babycakes instinctively told FFA's character that she should keep this interaction a secret. He said this because he was fully aware that he could get cancelled for what he was doing, and he acknowledged it in this following clip.
Don't tell anyone, okay? Daddy doesn't want to get cancelled again.
Yeah.
Babycakes absolutely knew that what he was doing would be condemned by every normal person who saw it, and here he was, asking a child to protect him from those consequences. The conversation continued to escalate. Babycakes started asking increasingly explicit questions about what she knew, what she'd seen, and what she wanted to look at, and he framed all of it as help, and a form of education, as if he was just a dad taking care of his little girl.
What does baby know? What does baby know about naughty stuff?
I feel like I just know like the normal stuff, like guy and girl stuff that like my mom explained to me.
Did baby ever look at that stuff on the internet?
Not yet.
For a much clearer context, this was an adult man speaking to a person he believed to be a 15-year-old girl and asking if she wanted him to show her graphic material. And he did this while speaking in a tone of care and protection. And as he kept making these advances, Babycakes continued to request that she kept their interaction a secret. He even added that if she didn't play it safe, people would attack him, and she would never see him again.
Daddy's happy to help you with stuff, okay?
Yeah.
Because if people find out Daddy's helping you with naughty stuff, they're gonna and they're gonna make me go away, and then we don't get to see each other.
This was next level manipulation, and FFI was done with his sting operation. He had gathered enough evidence to pin against Babycakes and caught him right in the act. The beginning of the end for Babycakes started when he asked FFI's character if she would like to see some baby stuff, whatever that meant, and instead of responding with the voice modulator, FFI reverted to his real voice and answered Babycakes seconds later.
I would like to look at baby stuff cakes.
Babycakes' first move, the minute he realized he was caught, is quite embarrassing. Instead of logging off or even getting defensive, he quickly acted as if he had seen through FFI's sting operation the entire time.
Hey, yo! I knew it was you!
No, you didn't.
Yes, I
You wouldn't have said that stuff if you did. Then why'd you say all that stuff?
Which is exactly the point. If Babycakes knew it was him the whole time, why did he spend weeks with the young girl he posed as? Why did he ask her to keep secrets? And why did he offer to show her graphic content? It was obvious that Babycakes had been caught red-handed in this situation, and FFI didn't spare him any mercy. But Babycakes being the thick-headed person, he was refused to back down. He kept circling back to the same defensive questions, asking how and why he would kids, as if that wasn't what he had been doing for weeks.
Why would I them?
You me, bro. You were trying to from when we first were alone, bro. You're saying like, oh, are you into baby stuff? Ooh, what do you think about when you yourself? Why do you think that's appropriate to say to a 15-year-old?
FFI cornered him by questioning everything he had done till that moment. He mentioned how Babycakes had been whining and playing victims to children, talking about how people wrongfully labeled him a when in the real sense of things he was guilty of that. But Babycakes wasn't paying attention. In his mind, he was still a victim of circumstance. Instead of admitting his wrongs, he tried to spin the entire situation back on FFY, asking why he had pretended to be a mentally ill child. In his defense, FFY had been the one who made him say those things just because of the mask he had worn. Babycakes must have realized that he looked dumb for deflecting from the topic, because in the next breath, he sort of surrendered to FFI. Instead of dragging the situation any longer, he told FFI that he had gotten what he wanted.
You got what you wanted now. Well, you got what you wanted now, what?
From his tone, Babycakes sounded bored and unremorseful. He was treating this confrontation like an inconvenience rather than actual crackdown. He was just irritated that he got caught, and he wanted the conversation to end. That tells you everything you need to know about Babycakes. And his next words truly revealed that deep down he still did not see himself as the bad person.
You like to say you're not a
Nah,
okay, explain to me how you're not one.
Like I said, you got what you wanted. You're gonna go cause issues and take everything out of proportion.
I'm not causing issues.
Babycakes' audacity was alarming. He saw FFY's intervention as an issue. There was no sense of self-reflection, and he didn't even promise that he wouldn't repeat his actions again. All that was on his mind was that he was busted for one case, and it wasn't as serious as FFI was making it out to be. In fact, it will shock you to note that Babycakes made a sick comment about how FFI was wasting his time on him when there were real world.
Bam. There's actually fucking legit rumors out there. I'm not.
Yeah, you.
Problems.
You are. You. I just proved it.
So with such overwhelming evidence, what next? You must be wondering if Babycakes lost his platform and perhaps faced criminal charges. Well, while that should have been the case, none of those things happened. This is because someone fought to protect Babycakes. This person was none other than Stitch Bash, the creator of Frenny's Nightclub, one of the more well-known VRChat worlds. Stitch Bash happened to be friends with Babycakes and was actively promoting his Toy Box group on a server that was open to with no age restrictions whatsoever. 2 days after the confrontation, on May 17th, FFY reached out to Stitch Bash directly through his Discord server. He informed him of two things: that his friend Babycakes had been caught engaging in predatory behavior, and that he was actively advertising his group on a server accessible to Hey there! I understand you're associated with a group called the Toy Box owned by Babycakes. I have video proof of him trying to be with me when he is a 32-year-old man. Stitch Bash's response was nothing like FFI expected. Instead of considering the evidence FFI put forward, he became hostile toward him. First of all, he went defensive, asking how he was associated with Babycakes. Then he deflected by saying he had no control over the situation. He said, "I'm not here to police VRChat or anything else past my own world." But his initial reaction shouldn't have been this hostile. He didn't even call out Babycakes or condemn the behavior. The first and only thing on his mind was to separate himself from the situation and dispel any rumor that he was friends with Babycakes. FFI, to his credit, stayed calm and explained that he had reached out hoping that more practical solutions could be met. I'm not saying you two are best friends, but this guy's actions are inexcusable. In order to maintain a safe environment within your community, these kinds of people shouldn't be allowed to be within it. This is a sensible way to handle the situation. If Stitch Bash was on board, he could have helped spread awareness about Babycakes and how he's a hazard to kids, and this would be instrumental in preventing more victims in the long run. Even if he were permanently banned on VRChat, he wouldn't be able to easily operate through multiple alternate accounts once his name had gone viral for the wrong reasons. But instead of seeing reason in this approach, Stitch Bash rejected it and backed away for the sake of his ties to Babycakes. Even when FFI directly sent Stitch Bash video proof of Babycakes being inappropriate with a young child, he responded by closing the support ticket and banning FFI from his server. He banned the person showing him evidence of child, and then he called FFI the creep. Then shortly after, Stitch Bash made a public announcement about the situation and claimed that FFI was the one who started the inappropriate conversations. Then he excused Babycakes' behavior by describing him as a friend that has some sort of issue where they do not have a real censor with what they say. Stitch Bash claimed that Babycakes had said those inappropriate things around children because he was just trying to offer a safe space for everyone. Can you believe that? He called the Toy Box a safe space, when in reality it was a group that a predator had built specifically to funnel vulnerable children into his orbit. It's worth noting here that Stitch Bash had also been running his own server as a 16+ community. Only after FFI spoke to him did he change the age restriction to 18+, which means that before their conversation, he had also been running a teen-accessible server while actively promoting a known predators group within it. After FFA made a YouTube post about being banned, Stitch Bash made another announcement saying he was taking a break from the community because his friends were leaving and avoiding him. But even then, he still stood up for Babycakes, stating that he had done nothing wrong. However, this defense didn't last long, because soon after, Stitch Bash quietly deleted his original announcement about FFI, the one where he called Babycakes his friend. It's possible that he realized that publicly claiming friendship with a verified PDF file was not a great look. After the entire ordeal, Babycakes got banned. His main account, the Toy Box group, and all his associated alt accounts were taken down on VRChat. But a platform ban is not the end of this story. It might not even be the beginning of the end. Babycakes had been banned before, after the Lunari incident. But he returned again. You see, when it happened, he had turned on one of his close friends, a user called Admin. Admin had been Babycakes' right-hand man, and by all accounts, someone who was genuinely close to him for a long time. And at some point, he became one of the people Babycakes started blaming for his ban. Admin made his own video about this, and he was bitter about how much Babycakes had been slandering him.
It's the funniest ever that, apparently, me, his right-hand man, got him banned. But also, it is kind of sad that I had the evidence to prove that I had nothing to do with it, yet he still decided not to believe it.
Babycakes accused Admin of being the one who got him banned. He spread this around privately to mutual friends, trying to isolate Admin and turn people against him. This tracks completely with what multiple people have said about Babycakes' behavior. The moment someone in his circle starts having relationships or loyalties that don't run exclusively through him, he perceives it as a threat, and his response is always the same. He'd fabricate evidence, spread rumors, and try to get people to turn against the person he wants to isolate. This was what he continued to do, even after he was removed from VRChat, and perhaps his sense of loneliness led him to upload a sham of an interview on his YouTube channel with someone he claimed was some kind of law enforcement contact. He claimed that this person was a cybersecurity cop who had been investigating online cases across VRChat and similar platforms. Apparently, this official had told him that a report had been filed about him out of Sydney, Australia.
We've been just sort of doing some skimming of sorts. And we got a report from somewhere in Lower Sydney about you.
It's unclear whether this official was a legit person, but the video worked in Babycakes' favor, and this was a PDF file who had been caught in the act. So it's possible that this interview might have been part of a script, because in a sane setting, a person would get a lawyer and not entertain such an official, or even post their interaction online. FFI also listed the interview as a fake, claiming that Babycakes was trying to use it to lessen the controversies surrounding his name. He wrote in a YouTube post, "Known VRC predator Babycakes is now pretending to be law enforcement in a pathetic attempt to disprove my video from a year ago. Keep lying, Babycakes, and you'll get a part 2. Moving on, instead of ending the call, Babycakes relaxed and opened up to the official. She quickly established a warm setting by telling him that she thought of him as a nice person.
I've been around you. You seem like a very nice guy. I've put that in the reports that you're a very nice guy. However, there are problems surrounding you that need to be addressed."
You know that in Babycakes' books, any authority figure who isn't immediately condemning him is an ally. And just like that, Babycakes quickly and completely dropped his guard the moment he believed he had sympathetic ears. He immediately pivots to attacking FFY and Molly, and cycling through his full roster of enemies. He told the contact,
"So all these people just kept false reporting and dumping, and then when you actually look into these people, that's why I made videos on them. When you look into these people, then it's like, oh, you're not a victim, you're just a piece of trying to cover up what you did in false report."
He even tries to use the call as an opportunity to report his own enemies, offering to hand over information on people he claimed had child pornography. He offered names and addresses pulled from public records and volunteered to become an informant, essentially, all while the case against him is supposedly still open. At the end of the day, nothing in the clip absolved him of the fact that he was caught red-handed in FFY's sting operation. It's 2026 now, and he had to go as far as uploading a video claiming that cybersecurity experts didn't hold him accountable for his actions. It's pathetic, and it only leaves questions about what his mental state is truly like. Did he not realize that this situation would have been avoided if children were not involved in any way? But as always, he's too thick to understand his situation, and what everyone tries to warn him about. Babycakes is still out there. He updates his YouTube channel regularly, and for some reason, he started focusing on conducting interviews with from VRChat as well as their victims. Here's one he titled, "An Interview with Navi," and another, "An Interview with Gloomy Looney's Victim." His interview with Lunari, his own victim, is also part of this list, but as you already know, he twisted the facts and created the narrative that Lunari had been paid to frame him. But no one could have framed an innocent person to do this. What innocent person would talk like that to a child? How can you set someone up to catch them saying something like this? The evidence was clear, and Babycakes was still trying to defend himself. His so-called interview with Lunari is obviously a sham. Maybe he paid Lunari to change the narrative, or maybe he threatened her. But the bottom line is that his interview can't change the truth. Who knows if the other interviews he conducted with and their victims are authentic? Did he remain biased, or did he fight for justice since it had nothing to do with him? We don't have answers for that, but as sad as it is, this coverage makes some people trust him. They trust him enough to join his new Discord page, where they can share their own stores of I had an incident that happened when I was 6. And they trust him enough to watch his videos. But fair enough, the numbers aren't titanium. Babycakes might be lurking around VRChat with different alt accounts like he usually does. He could be talking to a child right this very moment. Why? Because the system around him enables it. He hasn't faced criminal penalties for his wrongdoings, and his parents are probably still enabling his behavior.
Entertain. Keep entertaining in this bull. You obviously love the drama.
You think I'm entertaining it?
With people like this surrounding him, who knows how many cases they have willingly shut down for the sake of protecting their precious son. And with this system of support, Babycakes will forever delude himself into thinking that he never actually did anything wrong.
And he was like, if I was a wouldn't I change my username?
I'm not gonna lie, I did, bro. That was
That is Tech Gangster, content creator who has earned a reputation as one of the most notorious predators you will ever find on the internet. His bio on VRChat reads, single, 30, badass, and alpha male, so you could already tell what to expect. So in this video, we will be checking out the timeline of one of the most toxic and dangerous predators in VRChat. To understand what Tech Gangster actually is, you first have to understand the platform he chose to operate on. VRChat is a free social platform where users create or download custom avatars and hang out in virtual spaces. It is wildly popular with teenagers, many of whom use it to socialize, play games, and make friends online. Into that environment walked a 30-year-old man who intentionally positioned himself in lobbies dominated by younger, highly impressionable users. His preferred hangout spot was what VRChat players call optimized box, a type of public lobby, and people who spent time there knew exactly who he was and what he was there for. To uncover some of the heinous things Tech Gangster has done, Snakehead, a YouTuber, conducted a long investigative documentary on Tech Gangster, where he spoke with victims of his abuse as well as his ex-girlfriends. His presence in those spaces was not innocent. Over a period of years, he built up what could only be described as a system for identifying and isolating vulnerable young girls. He would approach them warmly, offer them attention and affection, and present himself as a protective older figure who genuinely cared about them.
Like, he will tell you you're safe with him, he'll protect you, that he loves you, all this and that. And it's like, to somebody that maybe doesn't have a parental figure in their life that loves them like that, it might seem like he's like the only thing they have. Like, he might be a lifeline to them.
Once he had their trust, the dynamic shifted. He would begin making weird sexual requests, and if they refused, the warmth would evaporate, and the threats would start. He would tell them they were going to be responsible for his if they did not comply. He would call them derogatory names for not doing what he asked.
One day, like the other night, I think, he called me and basically tried to get me to show him my feet. And whenever I said, obviously I didn't want to, so I pretended like, oh, my mic's not working, it's not working, I can't speak, I'm trying to, do you hear me right now, all this da-da-da. And since I wasn't showing him my feet actively, he called me a stupid and told me to off, and then he proceeded to leave the call.
Two 16-year-old girls described this exact pattern in an interview with Snakehead. They had both been approached by Tech Gangster in public VRChat lobbies, told they were beautiful, given attention they were not used to receiving, and then pressured repeatedly for photos and content once he had established a foothold in their social lives.
He has professed his love for me, told me how gorgeous I am, asked to see my feet on numerous different,
he's done that to me
occasions.
as well.
And then this morning he asked to see my and he didn't call me.
One of them described it directly. He had professed his love for her, told her how gorgeous she was, asked to see her feet and more, and done the same to her friend at the same time. They both found out about each other. He had declared both of them as girlfriends without giving either of them any real say in the matter.
This morning he was telling me how much he loved me, how much he wanted to date me.
The control he exerted over these girls extended beyond just the two of them. He maintained a private Discord server, and leaving that server or cutting contact with him meant losing all of the friends you had made there. He had engineered a social environment where compliance with his demands was the price of belonging.
But the thing is, if you break up with Tech, you lose all of your friends, because he single-handedly manipulates every single other girl in there, to the point where if you leave that server, or if you stop being friends with Tech and hang out with somebody he doesn't like, you're cut off from all of the friends you had made, or anybody you really knew before you...
There was no doubt that Tech Gangster knew what he was doing. That was why he also openly told to say that they were 18 if anyone asked. This was a way of coaching young girls to provide him with cover.
Yeah, and he's fully aware that we are 16. We tell him this numerous times. And
he's like,
if somebody
no one
asks
needs
him,
to know, just say you're 18.
The next question people begin asking is why he does any of these. There's a financial angle to answering this question, which is worth noting. He had not held a job in years, by his own admission. The money he received came from donations. He would publicly complain about being broke, say he didn't have food, and then receive funds from people on his server who felt sorry for him. By his own account, every dollar went to alcohol and cigarettes.
What he does all day, every day is he passes out drunk on the floor. He wakes up some hours later, cries about how he has no fucking money, and then proceeds to get sent money, and basically just goes to the store, buys cigarettes, gets alcohol, and then that's all he does all day, every day.
He also used money as a form of manipulation in the other direction. He would send money to girls in his server, describe himself as a provider, and use the financial gesture to create a sense of obligation. The pattern was consistent. Warmth and generosity first, then demands, then threats when the demands were not met. Despite his aggressive public denials, Tech Gangster's own digital footprint betrayed him. While heavily intoxicated during one of his recorded VRChat sessions, he admitted on camera to having engaged in inappropriate conduct.
I'm not gonna lie, I did when I was 16.
In that same session, he acknowledged that his 15-year-old girlfriend was, in his own words, too young for him, but that he could not leave her. The most chilling thing about how he operated was the ease with which he did it. He picked a platform full of young people and adopted a persona that mixed aggression with paternal warmth. He identified girls who had limited support systems at home, and then he moved in. It all looked like fiction, but there are countless of victims' accounts on the internet. It is easy to jump onto any Tech Gangster video and find a wall of testimonials from people about their encounters with him. What makes these accounts different from most internet callouts is the consistency. Every person tells a version of the same story. Multiple victims came forward stating that Tech Gangster had actively solicited them for acts and explicit content. There was a time one of his victims said they met him, and as one would expect, he was drunk, and he displayed a very weird behaviors towards people around him, which was consistent with different victim testimonials that have been looked at so far in the video. Dude is crazy. I came into his instance, and he was drunk. He was oversized, like Titan-sized, and power-tripping kicking people. I told my friend her friend got kicked and he called me a snitched and banned me within 10 seconds of interacting with him. Another person described joining a lobby and finding Tech Gangster there, then having him immediately come over and begin saying things to them.
So I went to him and I was like, yo, bro, that's like weird and whatever, like, you know. And then he was like, yeah, I would do it to you too. And I was like, bro, I'm on my. He was like, yeah, I would do it to you even more, or something like that. And then he blocked me. And he was doing it to a bunch of other people. He was like telling them a bunch of weird stuff.
One of the testimonials on Snakehead's documentary video talked about the sheer number of he had had relations with. I've interviewed one specific in his circle. They mentioned the letter and number at the end of his alt accounts. Name is the like order of creation. For example, a 01 would be his first one. Last time I recorded him, he was on the letter G, but I have no idea where he's at now. E49 would be around his 549th alt. Another witness described seeing him in an optimized box with a 14-year-old girl, while simultaneously telling people who called him out that he was not a predator. The logic he offered was genuinely stunning. He argued that if he were actually a predator, he would have changed his username.
And he was like, if I was a wouldn't I change my username? And I was like, you like the attention.
He had become so embedded in the platform that even people who had never spoken to him directly knew who he was and what he did. One person described bumping into what they thought was a Tech Gangster account and having the user immediately approach a 15-year-old girl in the lobby. Another described him chasing them around a virtual map with a urination emote after an encounter they did not consent to.
By the name of Tech Gangster?
I've seen him, but I haven't said I've spoken.
Oh man, she's interacted alright.
I've been pissed on.
Oh, he pissed on you? Yeah.
Yeah.
There was also the matter of how he treated people who tried to call him out publicly. One person described walking up to him in a lobby with a young girl and trying to warn her about who she was spending time with. Tech Gangster immediately got in that person's face, started screaming, and then told them that pointing at his pixels would accomplish nothing. The girl stayed with him.
You know what, Dustus Fox? You shut the you stupid mermaid. And you know what? You support that. You still talking to the same guy. I'm sorry I'm you email at the same time.
One former community member described how the server he maintained operated almost like a cult. He had his own vocabulary for the people in it. He called girls his daughters and then also his girlfriends, sometimes in the same breath. The social hierarchy within the group meant that these younger girls had to look up to him, and that was exactly what he wanted.
He has like this big god complex that he pushes onto people, that he's like, he calls himself daddy.
Oh yeah, he does.
But it's not just the predatory inclinations and some people who have encountered him also talked about his cringy and disgusting behavior. I saw this guy sleeping in an optimized box, and he was snoring so loud, and a dude told me about him and to look him up. This is crazy, bro. There's also the fact that he tends to use slurs heavily towards others. One of the most sad people I've ever met, I just got off a VRChat from a lobby with him in it. He called me multiple slurs and was talking about some diabolical things. People also described his behavior during rare sober appearances versus his behavior when drunk, and the contrast was stark. Sober, he could have a coherent, even warm conversation. Drunk, which was the version of him that showed up to VRChat almost every single time. He was erratic, cruel, manipulative. Multiple witnesses described watching him cycle through the same toxic loop, enter a public lobby, establish himself as a protective father figure, escalate demands, threaten those who refused, throw a public meltdown when confronted, and then pass out drunk on his floor, only to repeat the entire sequence the next day. One of those who have met him also testified to the fact that he was his girlfriend. I just met this guy, and it's so insane. His current girlfriend is being verbally and mentally. She is going through and needs some help. What made community members particularly frustrated was the way younger users who had not been around long enough to know his history would sometimes defend him. They would have had a decent first encounter with a sober or relatively calm version of him and concluded that the accusations were exaggerated. This was exactly the dynamic he relied on. The positive first impression was not accidental. It was clearly the opening move. The fact that so many people had stories and that those stories all converged on the same behaviors made it clear that what was happening was not a series of misunderstandings. It was a system, and it had been running for years. The manipulation did not stay confined to VRChat. Investigations into his private relationships revealed a consistent pattern that extended into his real-life romantic partnerships as well. One of the most disturbing aspects of the way Tech Gangster operated was his use of emotional blackmail as a primary tool of control. When girls refused his demands, he did not just get angry. He would threaten to himself, telling them they would be responsible for his they did not comply.
Basically just will threaten somebody to do what he wants by saying like, oh, you're gonna be the reason I'm all this and that. And another time,
the two 16-year-olds who spoke with Snakehead described this dynamic in detail. He had called one of them at night, clearly intoxicated, and used the threat of pressure her into showing him explicit content.
He was like, if you don't show me, I'm gonna drink myself to you really want like you to be responsible for my. But it got like really more intense than that, to the point I started having a breakdown.
And then, when she refused, she basically guilt-tripped her into feeling like she was being childish. He also used jealousy as a means of control. If a girl on his server talked to a male user, he would scream at her. If she did not block someone he disliked fast enough, he would block her. He monitored who the girls in his orbit interacted with and treated any contact with other males as a personal betrayal, regardless of whether any romantic relationship had been agreed to. He also knew how to ensure there was enough emotional volatility in the relationship so that he could always have the upper hand. He would tell a girl she was the most beautiful person he had ever met, then 2 exchanges later tell her she was basically dead to him. In his self-produced documentary, Tech Gangster addressed his relationship history in a way that he clearly thought was exculpatory, but actually revealed quite a bit. He admitted to pulling his girlfriend's hair. He framed it as a single mistake in an otherwise troubled relationship, but the audio evidence that YouTuber Snakehead collected from Kuwitz told a different story, as is evidence of a woman being verbally.
You are the reason why our kids are gonna learn because you can't learn. Obey. Are you an animal? No. You act like one. I want to dump you. I want to break up with you. I'm going to shop with another girl.
However, in his own interview, when asked directly whether he had ever put his hands on a woman, he said he regretted pulling a girlfriend's hair. He immediately pivoted to saying that both his exes had done things to him first, that arguments and relationships are normal, and that it was everyone else's business to stay out of his relationships.
We're not appreciating each other and shit like that, you know what I'm saying? And we started arguing this and that, and shit might slightly get out of hand. Everybody has their ups and downs in a relationship. That's our business. That's not everyone else's business, you know what I mean?
He also admitted in that same interview to smashing objects when angry, breaking computers, damaging his car, and having difficulty controlling his temper in relationships. He framed all of this as the fault of his life circumstances rather than as a pattern of behavior he had been choosing to continue across multiple relationships and years. What made the dynamic especially concerning was the age gap between him and his targets. He was not pursuing adults who were equipped to navigate a difficult relationship and leave it. He was targeting teenagers who had no prior experience with this type of person, who believed his early warmth was genuine, and who felt trapped by the social structure he had built around them. Among community survivors, what stuck with people most was not just what he did, it was the fact that he had convinced himself genuinely that he was a good person doing good things. That level of self-deception is what made people see him as one of the saddest humans ever. Dude says he doesn't care if people are and then proceeded to call me slurs. By far, the saddest human I've ever had the misfortune of meeting. Tech Gangster's public appearances are defined by one thing above everything else: severe intoxication. He does not drink occasionally or socially. By his own admission in his documentary interview, he drinks every single day, starting shortly after he wakes up, continuing throughout the night, and repeating the cycle the next morning. His entire experience of VRChat happens through an alcoholic haze, and the community has witnessed the consequences of that in real time.
Hi.
Hola. What are you up to this morning?
What do you about me?
What? Why
You
is
be my girlfriend?
the first thing you say when you come in? When I come in?
Rather than hiding his state, he regularly broadcasts a level of intoxication that leads to profoundly disturbing physical behavior on camera. He has vomited on the stream. He has urinated on his own floor while live streaming and then chased community members around the virtual map with a urination emote, seemingly finding the whole thing funny. He also described his drinking method in his documentary interview with a level of detail that suggested he had refined it into a routine. He described mixing cheap vodka with lemon juice to make it easier to consume consume quickly, buying the cheapest bottles available from a 7-Eleven near his house, and using the alcohol as the primary way he regulated his mood before getting on the platform.
I figured out this. Lemon juice. That's like a topping, a dressing. So what I do, I got lemon juice. So you have a bottle of vodka, you drink it, you ignore it. It's hard to chug liquor straight up. It is. But when you go through so much bad things in your life, all the pain and all the heartache and depression and hell.
When asked about the one time in recent years he had experimented with harder substances, he described stopping quickly because he recognized the signs of dependence. He framed this as evidence of self-awareness and discipline. The VRChat community's response to seeing him enter a public lobby has become almost ritualistic. Everyone who recognizes him immediately begins berating him. He shouts slurs back at them. He makes violent threats. Observations from his private Discord server and public VRChat lobbies show a lack of remorse. He openly boasts about his toxic lifestyle and routinely uses slurs to attack anyone who questions him. When Snakehead attempted to approach him in his Discord server and simply asked to have a conversation, Tech Gangster called him a slur and banned him within 7 seconds. He later described this as a ban speedrun. When Snakehead joined a VRChat lobby, Tech Gangster was in and walked over to him. The response was a stream of threats and slurs delivered at maximum volume. Having done all of these, it is not surprising that he has been swatted multiple times. By his own count, law enforcement had been dispatched to his home on numerous occasions. Rather than treating this as a warning sign that his behavior had consequences, he treated each swatting as a badge of honor, further proof of how famous he was and how much people feared him. But maybe it's karma keeping up with him, because he also described his home situation in the interview in a way that made clear just how isolated his life had become. He lived in what appeared to be the same space he had always occupied. His only companion was a dog with cancer. He described rarely leaving except to go to the convenience store for alcohol. He had cut off essentially all real-world relationships.
Okay, so where do you stay now? Where do you live? Like
I live in Virginia. And I'll probably have someone try to take care of me.
Okay, that's your.
I don't have family.
Siblings?
No. My dog for dog fighting that I rescued. He has cancer. His name is Smoke Dog. He's my best friend. He's actually in the bed right now.
When asked about the allegations during any of his intoxicated broadcasts, he either claimed he had no idea what people were talking about, launched into a tirade about how everyone was jealous of him, or deflected entirely to talking about how many girls he had in his DMs. One of the most revealing things he ever said in a public VRChat session was when he told people that after being falsely accused for 2 years, he had simply stopped caring. He was playing into the predator persona, because people were going to accuse him of it anyway, so he might as well go with it. He described this as a strategic choice, as though adopting a predator persona in response to predator accusations was somehow clever rather than immediately incriminating.
Because they didn't give a about me. Man, bro, when you get framed when you're innocent for 2 damn years and people are your family and attacking you and they literally ruined your name all over the goddamn world basically if you did get famous, okay, you're not gonna give a shit no more. I'm playing along with it now.
The tragedy of watching his public meltdowns is that they are not even particularly interesting. Unlike other internet disasters, they follow the same script every time. He enters a space, someone recognizes him, he gets called out, he escalates, he threatens, calls people slurs, and then he blocks. Then rinse and repeat. 2 years ago, as the allegations reached a boiling point, Tech Gangster made a pivot. He started a YouTube channel. The description on the channel reads, "Tech Gangster is innocent. Ignore other videos by enemies." Before a single video is even clicked, you already know exactly what the channel was built to do. He began uploading content specifically designed to frame himself as a stable, decent person who had been unfairly targeted by a coordinated smear campaign. His most ambitious piece of content in this campaign was a self-produced documentary in which he invited a British interviewer named Char to follow him around VRChat and conduct a filmed interview with him at a McDonald's.
Now, I'm not here to take sides, nor am I here to present evidence regarding anyone's past. I have my own opinions which I'll be sharing at the end. The purpose of this video is to get inside the mind of VRChat's most hated person and to find out who he really is from a place of non-judgment.
The documentary is a fascinating piece of content, but not for the reasons Tech Gangster intended. It is fascinating because despite his clear goal of humanizing himself, almost every single thing he says in it makes his situation worse. In the documentary, he addressed the allegations directly. He claimed the girls he had contact with were not, that he had always asked to confirm ages before anything happened, and that he actively muted or blocked users who acted like or claimed to be.
If you say you're I'm blocking you.
Say please.
Please, will
no,
you
no,
give me your
no,
age?
say the whole sentence nicely.
What do you want me to say to you?
Just say it nicely, in a nice, normal way. I know you can say it nicely. Go for it.
How old are you?
The problem with this defense is that it contradicts the documented record entirely. Multiple had explicitly told him their ages, on camera, in front of witnesses, and he had continued. One of the 16-year-olds in Snakehead's interview described telling him her age repeatedly and being ignored. The defense only worked if you had not seen any of the evidence, which was precisely the audience he was hoping to reach with the documentary. He also addressed the relationship allegations by making himself the victim. He described his ex-girlfriend as someone who had cheated on him, who had supplied ammunition to his enemies by sharing information about their relationship, and who was now somehow proving his innocence by spending time with him again after their breakup.
Yeah, I've been spending time with my ex.
Yeah. Oh, the one from the documentary.
Yeah, but I'm hurt that she and another guy did stuff.
Oh, while you were broken up.
Yeah.
What, did she get in contact with you, or did you get in contact with her?
She got in contact with me.
Oh, what did she say?
That I was right.
Right about what?
About the guy that took her from me.
So you guys gonna try and make it work?
I want to, but I don't know, I'm really hurt. And sometimes I don't like how she responds to me or treats me. Because I'm hurt and she doesn't understand.
The logic here is worth pausing on. His argument was that essentially, she came back to me, therefore I did not her. What this ignores is everything documented about how cycles of actually work. It was not a defense. It was an accidental admission. In the McDonald's interview, when asked what mistakes he wished he could take back, he said he wished he had been nicer in his relationships. He said he wished he had not pulled a girlfriend's hair. He said he wished he had been a better son to his mother.
So if you could take back any mistake that you've made, or several mistakes, what would you take back? If any.
I wish I stayed in school. I wish I was nicer to people. I wish I could have been a better man to my 2 last relationships. The 4-year relationship, 5 relationship. I wish I appreciated my 2 exes more.
And then a few months later, he described a girl who was 15, turning 16 in a few months, and said he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her, that she was beautiful, and that he did not get to choose her age.
I'll be turning 30, and her state plus, and I'm actually trying to change my life. I talk to my family. I'm trying to get my life straightened. And I'm gonna drive to her.
The gap between what he claimed to believe and what he actually did was not subtle. It was not even hidden. He managed to contradict himself within the span of a single conversation without appearing to notice. The self-documentary also attempted to frame him as someone who genuinely cared about the young people around him and wanted to help them make better choices. He described telling the sons and daughters in his VRChat server to do well in school and to avoid ending up like him, but the Snakehead documentary had already established what was happening in that same server. The framing of himself as a concerned parent figure was exactly the language he used to gain access to these young people in the first place. Calling them his sons and daughters was not protective, it was the entry point. Apart from the self-documentary, he gave an hour-long interview where he tried to explain his personality. The interview revealed something that his public persona had always obscured. He talked at length about his childhood, describing real and serious a father who was absent and then violent, a mother he loved but rarely saw, a childhood defined by instability in moves and no consistent support structure.
So, I mean, I didn't have a dad and shit. I'm thinking about back when I was 3, 4, 5. You know, I used to go visit my dad on the weekends and shit. And that's what led up to me living with him from 11 to 13, because I thought, you know, when I go visit my dad, he used to make us so perfect, you know, like, because he valued having me visiting him. So I had this, I was like hypnotized, be like, all right, well, if I live with him, it's going to be always like that.
None of that excused anything, but it probably did explain something about why he had ended up here, and why he could not seem to stop. He had grown up without anyone to show him what a healthy relationship with an authority figure looked like, and he had built his entire online identity around occupying the position he had never had. He was not the child being mentored. He was the mentor, the daddy, the protector, the provider, and the people he selected for those roles were always, consistently, the young and the vulnerable. As another arm of his whitewashing campaign, he began making videos in which he presented himself as a bad guy catcher, exposing other VRChat members for inappropriate behavior, while positioning himself as an authority on what was and was not acceptable conduct. The audacity of this particular move should not be understated. A man who had been reported to the FBI was now making content framing himself as a community protector, and since he knew what would happen in the comments, he simply hid the negative ones and kept the positive ones, such as this. Honestly, I think I believe he's innocent. He seems like a cool guy, and I've seen all the videos and clips of him saying, but I get that people troll on VRChat, so I can't really say that he means any of it. I definitely think people shouldn't make hate videos on him without getting Tech Gangster's side of the story, though, because he can't defend himself or anything. He also described wanting to someday stream on Twitch or Kick and get paid for his personality. He described having a talent manager who would help him build a legitimate career. The reason was that this was to fulfill his aspiration to buy a big house.
I'm a perfectionist. I need money.
Do you have a plan to get out of the situation?
Give me $1 million. Yeah, this is my plan. I keep on
You
fighting
wanna,
like a
blow
war.
up as an entertainer? Why don't you start streaming on Kick or some shit? Like, why not get paid for it? People are gonna you regardless. Why not let them you for like a bag?
These plans were described with total sincerity and zero apparent awareness of how far removed they were from his actual situation. He was unemployed, nearly broke, relying on donations from to buy alcohol, and had been reported to federal law enforcement. The gap between where he was and the future he described was not a small one. The desperate attempts to whitewash his name with fake documentaries and curated interviews cannot erase the digital receipts. Every chat log, every testimony, every piece of video evidence that had been collected and shared by the community remained online and continued to be referenced by anyone who encountered his name.